What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We are now going to start the process of tearing down this m52tu. And along the way, I'm going to try and throw a little bit of my knowledge into the whole situation. So come along and help me tear down this motor. Little history for you guys. This motor came out of a 2000 528i. It's actually automatic, but this is the m52tu. We are putting it back into another e39 that has oil consumption issues. The TU in the m52tu portion of it stands for technical upgrade, and that meaning it actually now has dual Vanos. The original M52 only had single Vanos, and it only controlled the intake side of the cam. This now has, it can advance and retard the intake and the exhaust cam. So we're going to tear this thing down. We're going to first start with like the wiring harness and just some little things, and we're all the way down. We're going to clean it up and get this thing ready to apply new parts and get it ready to go in the car. And then we'll actually have to remove the motor from that car before we even get this one in there. But let's get tearing this thing down and just kind of show you guys some stuff. It might look like a whole bunch of mess, but it all kind of makes sense. There's wires just going everywhere. And what we're going to do is we're going to start right here. So this kind of pulls off. Just kind of pull on it. It comes off. We're just going to let it dangle because we need to undo a couple clips, cut some. We'll actually just cut that. There's vacuum lines all over this thing that go places. We're actually going to try and cut this without cutting ourselves. There we go. All right. I will have to grab a couple tools here in a second. We'll undo our O2 sensors for right now. And I do believe we are going to be leaving the cats on it. The customer does not want to turn it into a quote-unquote race car. Just fine by me. It doesn't upset me one bit. Yeah, so right now I'm just messing with that over there, kind of. So we want to, this goes to your, this right here goes to the fuel rail. It's the injector harness. Just going to try and pull these little clippies off here in a second. So let me grab you guys here. So we got the injector harness here. There's a sensor. It's down in there. We're going to pull him off. What I like to do is there's little clips right there. I don't know if you guys can see it. I used to just take a pry bar and pow and just pop this sucker right off. But what I like to do now is I like to actually grab a pick tool and try and just pluck one side. Right, so let me grab a pick tool here. Let me show you guys this. So I like to grab a pick tool and just kind of grab one side of this. I'm just going to try and hold you still. Just kind of grab one side like that and just kind of flick it off. It makes it come off so much easier. Sometimes you got to do both sides, but it's just like, I don't know. I just run into one too many problems when I just pry on the dang thing and rip it out. But as you can see, it's off of that injector. So The other issue is these injectors. I knock on wood, I've never really had a lot of problem with them, but recently, my son's car that we swapped, we actually did. The injectors were not leaking. We did the swap, and I touched the injectors the wrong way apparently, and yeah, it messed them up. They started leaking like crazy. So this is my new method. I shouldn't say new. It's actually something I've done. I kind of just got lazy when you're when you're in a rush and you're trying to get things done. You tend to just kind of find the easy way out, and sometimes the easy way out isn't always the best route. Yes, I just ripped that. It's fine. I have all new vacuum hose to go on this. So, but anyways, I apologize if you're getting sick. I'm trying to hold the phone and do this to show you guys what I'm doing. All right, so let me grab a pry bar. I got a mini pry bar, so I just like to get a hold of it like this. Just kind of walk it all the way around here in a second. Might have to do this thing again. There it goes. The other thing you got to fight too is this vacuum hose, which goes to this guy over here, which, as you can hear, the foam is cracking. The actual hose itself isn't cracking, but we're gonna actually replace all that. Come on, little buddy. Come on. But anyways, just gonna try and pry out on that a little bit. Does that give us there we go. Yeah, you got to think these have probably never been touched. That one, good. One more. Guess I should have kept going with my pick tool, but oh, there we go. And then we got this connector here. This is actually your intake Vanos solenoid. You got to reach down there and squeeze it. Or you can grab this fancy tool. I wish I had the straight angle one, but you can take this thing down in here. Squeeze. Oh. Squeeze it. And then pop it. Patent pending. Is there a part number on these? There's not. I'll put in the description below a link to these. These things are a lifesaver. Saves the fingers for sure. So now we just need to pull up and out. And a couple of them little clips just fell off. We just got to put them back on here. It's not on all the way, but I want to see. There was one more that flew. It might have fallen on the ground. Oh, the one's down there. Let me grab a magnet. Hang on. Got all the clips back on. We're just going to let this thing chill right here, and we're going to work our way back to the other side. We got connectors all over the place. There's actually a connector up here for the disvalve and for if you don't know. So I'm just trying to educate anybody who's new. You might be a veteran to working on BMWs, but for those that don't know, the disvalve actually is a little flapper guy in there, and we'll go over that later. But he regulates the intake pressure. Why? Because the EPA. No, not because of the EPA, but I don't really, it helps the engine run better, but not really, to be honest. It just robs horsepower in my mind. But anyways, so I'm just going to disconnect all these connectors. Oh, that one goes this way. From the main harness. So that way we can get it off. And then, so I'll show you guys all the harness across the front. You have your thermostat sensor, temperature sensor, and then over here you have your second Vanos solenoid. So this one is the exhaust Vanos solenoid and your exhaust cam sensor. So we're just gonna pull this. We'll have to take that, the power steering reservoir will have to come off, which there's probably fluid in it. So before we can kind of go any further, I'm going to grab a couple different tools. We're going to take this off. We're going to take the belts off. We're going to drain the power steering fluid of whatever's left in there so that we can keep going with this. To take the belt off, this style of tensioner is a spring tensioner, so it's just a 16, and it has a spot right there, and you just push down on it. I recommend a somewhat longer sock or ratchet, and then the belt just comes off once you fight the power steering line. And we'll be replacing that, so that can go in the trash. So the power steering reservoir will get replaced as well. They have a little filter in them. Most people don't know this, but they actually have a little filter in them, and they tend to clog. And what'll happen is it gets all this residue around it, and if you don't replace it, it'll just keep backing it up, and it'll make your power steering worse. So it's important to follow your service intervals on your car, and that's any car. That doesn't matter, BMW or Mercedes or Lexus or your Honda Civic. You know, there's service intervals. It's important to do them. Now, there's only one interval that I'm going to tell you not to do, to follow, and that's the stupid, oh man, that's really on there. The 10,000 mile oil changes, please. Oh gosh, no, it's everywhere. Please don't do 10,000 mile oil changes. So it was just 213s that held the power steering reservoir on. I'm actually going to put these nuts back in here, just as a precautionary thing to make sure they don't go missing. The great thing is going to be the fact that we will have 2 motors. So if something's bad on this one, we can rob it from the other one. You know, if like this alternator looks like it's a remanufactured alternator, and so, which is cool. We know that's replaced, but I don't know what the status is on the other one. Maybe the other one has a better bearing. This one has a spider crawling out of it. You know, there's things like that, but we're going to kind of mismatch different pieces and parts, depending on what's better and what's not. So, this alternator has a 13 on the back. Got to grab that. 13 on the back was for the power wire that goes to the starter. So now we can actually take the alternator off. Still a 16 for this top one. We will be replacing this pulley because I don't know if you guys can hear that. That's bad. Holy moly, that one's even worse. So if you can see it in the video, it's spinning. These pulleys actually, when you spin them, they shouldn't spin like that. which sounds weird, I know, but it should have resistance. It should kind of just spin and stop. Anyway, so let's bust this bottom one loose here. Some coolant coming out. We're gonna pop this alternator off here. Gonna use the tool. All right, so we got the bolts undone there. 2 different lengths, so you can't really mess these up. But we're gonna get a new one of these. So in the trash, we're gonna take these bolts and we're gonna set them over here on our cart for now, and then we're gonna give this a wiggle, 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 and ta-da! It's off. Okay, I want to go ahead and pull this power steering pump off because it's just going to make it easier for teardown. 2 13s here, and then there is usually a bracket on the other side, which this one doesn't have. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's usually on the back side here. So. Just gonna zip it off. All right. And we're just gonna lay it in here for now. We'll actually stick these bolts in the. Oops, that's the wrong one. I'm gonna stick the bolts in the power steering bump just to keep them located. So now we got the oil filter housing exposed. We're gonna pull off this pulley because we're gonna get a new one because it shouldn't sound like that. So again, it's just 2 13s that hold that on. I'm gonna put the bolts in it for now. Sometimes when you buy the new tensioners, they come with new bolts. Sometimes they don't. So we're just gonna, oh, that's not the right hole. That's the right hole. We're just gonna thread these in here. We're gonna add this to the scrap pile because it's a potato at this point. We're gonna keep moving forward with disassembling all this. So now, come on, why is it freaking? All right, so take this 13 off. I got a 10 there. Need to take off as well. All right. Another thing we want to take off and get out of our way is the intake boots. The intake boots tend to get torn. This one's actually almost torn. You can kind of see it. So we won't be reusing those. So that one comes off. Then take the lower one off. The lower one actually has a little elbow on it, and it goes to the idle control valve. And then we got then it also goes to the throttle body. These tend to actually rip on the back sides. This one's actually in decent shape. But again, we're just going to get new ones. So we're just going to set that to the side. We can go ahead and disconnect the idle control valve. There's another 10 right here that we need to take off. And that's going to expose the throttle body. Oh, I lied. There's another 10 up here. So, and then I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's the throttle body is now exposed, and we can get to this connector. Maybe not. I can get to it. I just can't get it off. Might have to grab a tool here. Oh, there we go. So it's just like a twist lock connector. So Okay, and then we just peel it back like so, around all the coolant lines and whatnot. We got the oil level sensor, which is down here and covered in oil. Seems fitting, but unfortunately you don't want it covered in oil. We're going to try and pull the starter out of the way here. I'm going to grab this wiring. You got a coolant temperature sensor on the back side of the head here. That requires a little bit of effort to get on done. Get that. All right. And then we have our knock sensor connectors down here underneath. We'll unplug that. We got a 13 that holds the starter wire on. Got that off. So we got the power wire that goes to the alternator, and then power wire actually comes up here to a jump point. It's kind of cool. They did that on like the e39s. They did not do it on the 3 Series. And I don't know why. It's actually kind of a cool thing because, I mean, I know why, because on the E30 they put it over on the other spot. I don't know why they didn't do it like they did that. And we got the crank sensor. We're going to disconnect. There we go. And then that should be it. So I left the starter connected just because it was just easier for this point in time. But the rest of these wires, we can just pull them off. They don't need to come off, but there we go. So the first part of tearing this motor down is done. Next step will be to remove the intake manifold as far as teardown goes, but I actually want to pressure wash this thing before we go any further because it's absolutely filthy. And it'll just make it easier for assembly. Well, disassembly and reassembly. So we'll end up pulling, we're going to get a new water pump. We're going to get a new thermostat, new pulleys over here. Yeah, we're going to get a new one of those too. So, but anyways, wiring harness is off. It's just one of the many steps that we have to do. But I'm going to stop the video right there. We'll call this segment 1 or part 1 of the teardown. The next part, like I said, will be cleaning this thing up and we'll start tearing it down some more. But I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me, and be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for part 2.